A little psychic premonition that has yet to come true, but you guys can follow along and let me know if you hear the story before I do. I had a dream that a small plane was flying above a small town. I hear it as a prop plane. The engine catches fire and it crash lands, but it lands in not a field, but like near a couple of homes in a sparsely like populated area, but it lands next to a propane tank. And all the neighbors come running out of their homes to try to make sure that, they can save who they can save. Everybody's dead on the plane. The man who lives in the house that has the propane tank has dark brown hair and a mustache. I hear his name is George. I don't know if that's true, that name. It has not happened yet. I've been checking every day since I've had this dream. So now I'm putting it on you guys. If you hear the story, contact me back and let me know if this happened. Peace in. How I knew I had cancer. In 2020, at the height of the pandemic, I started noticing that I was super fatigued, so tired, had stomach ache, headache, and body ache, and this weird fever that was always there but never registering. I had a dream that I had cancer, so I went to my gynecologist and I said, "Can you please test me for cancer?" We don't have history of cancer in my family, and I had no reason to believe that that's what it was. My gynecologist at the time simply just did the typical pap smear and everything was clear. Unconvinced, I actually went to a pelvic floor therapist who gave me a massage, and after that massage, I started noticing that I was having pain every time I had sex. So I called my doctor's office again and I said, "I'm having pain with sex. I think there's something wrong. I think I have cancer." To which they said, "You're just a woman of a certain age and it's just likely that your body has changed." To which I lied and I told the next doctor that I was bleeding because I noticed that on all the questionnaire, if you were bleeding, they would see you very quickly. So I just lied and said I was bleeding. So then I got a biopsy of my uterus and they did a pelvic ultrasound to see if there was something causing the bleeding. That wasn't happening, it was just pain. They didn't find anything, no sign of cancer. After the biopsy, I actually did start bleeding. Every time we would have sex, it was just awful. They wouldn't listen to me. So I find this dude and he tells me that I am a woman of a certain age and that if I want to put an end to the bleeding and the pain, that I just need to have a hysterectomy. That broke my heart. And so then I decided just to go to holistic medicine. I did everything from steaming my vagina to going to pelvic care, to doing acupuncture, to Wim Hof, to just trying everything and anything that I could to stop the pain and bleeding. Nothing worked. I found another gynecologist and she ordered new imaging at a new location because my then insurance company wouldn't pay for it anymore because nothing was wrong. With the new imaging, the cancer was found. It was in and around where I'd had a C-section, in the scar tissue. It was both cervical and uterine, and they had missed it and broken through it when they had done the biopsy. So when you get a uterine biopsy, they put a glass tube up so as to not touch any of the cells of the cervix on its way up and only get the uterine as the biopsy. Well, my uterus didn't have where they were biopsying any of the cancer cells, but just below it on the tip of the cervix and the uterus where they two meet is where the cancer was, along the line of my C-section. Thankfully, we found it in the nick of time. We were able to do a radical hysterectomy. I was very lucky. I got radiation and chemo combo, and I have had a clean bill of health for 2 years now. You have to be your own advocate out there. You have to trust your body that it is telling you something's wrong, and don't let anybody gaslight you in the system and tell you that you don't know your body. You know what you need. Click this for the update and to see the original video, but here's the scooch. So 4 weeks ago, I woke up having had a dream that felt like a premonition. The dream was about a fiery plane crash in a tiny little prop plane, wherein the plane lands in a desolate area with some houses around it, lands next to a propane tank, and in my dream, I see these angels coming to take people and protect them, or that's how the dream interpreted it. Now, I'm a psychic, so dreams aren't perfect, but this one happened to kind of come true. So here's the update on that dream story. I did a psychic reading for a gal last week, and this gal last week invited her grandfather George in. We get to the part of how George died, and George died in a plane crash just near where I live. Okay, part 2 of the plane crash. So George matches the description from the original video that I made about this plane crash. What is not matching up in the storyline is that in my dream, it was so specific that it had hit a propane tank and that an angel had come to the propane tank to take the people away. Now, dream interpretation from a psychic is not perfect. There are always elements that twist and turn here. But this is where things get really funky in this reading with this gal. So she is an archaeologist, and they have recently discovered ancient Indian artifact on her property, on her family's legendary property in our valley. And so person that was helping her with this archaeological dig took pictures and made a calendar for her. In one of the pictures on the calendar is a picture of the sun hitting just right, but in the picture of the sun hitting just right is an angel. Go to part 3. The clincher, part 3. So in this picture in the calendar is a picture of an angel. It's rainbow colored, and the way that the wings are expanded, you can tell very clearly, even though it's just like the sun hitting just right, you can absolutely decide that it's not an angel. If you want to be, somebody who doesn't believe, that's okay. But here's what gets so freaking weird, in my opinion. The angel sitting on top of a propane tank. Now, I could still be waiting for George in a plane crash. That could still be a premonition that is to come. But the fact that all these pieces added up from one dream and that they all led to a single reading, and basically the divine from beyond, those who have crossed over on the other side, Mr. George, was telling me this entire story and validating in a dream before I even did this reading for this gal. That's crazy.
I keep having dreams that my fiance is going to leave me, and so then I wake up and I cry. He's not going to leave me. We have a very happy relationship, and there's a bunch of things going on in my life that make sense as to why I'm having these weird dreams, but I am triggered because once upon a time, my worst breakup, like 6 years ago, I had a dream that he was going to break up with me. I had a dream that my boyfriend at the time, 6 years ago, was going to break up with me. And it's completely out of nowhere. And I was like, oh, no, he's not going to break up with me. He broke up with me 2 days later, out of nowhere. And it was my biggest heartbreak I ever had. And then I never heard from him again, just went ghost. Props to him for blocking me, but so now I'm having these dreams and I'm like, Bridget, no, they are not a premonition. Has anyone else had dreams that they're going to get dumped before they get dumped? I am not going to get dumped this time. It is not my time.
This is how I know when a family member is going to die. Typically, it comes to me through visions and dreams that are quite repetitive, and it's a strong inner knowing. Let me tell you a story about how when I knew my mom was going to die. As a child, I always had a strong feeling that my mom was going to pass young, and as I grew older, this feeling really increased. Every single night in June 2011, I would have a dream that my mom was in a hospital bed filled with blood. I was 14 years old at the time, and this really terrified me. I didn't want to go directly to my mom because I didn't want to scare her, so I told my stepfather. He eventually told my mom, and she came to me to talk about it. She told me she had similar feelings, and she was already planning to have her will legalized. We both came to the conclusion that she most likely was going to be involved in some sort of accident. This was just based on the signs and dreams that we both received. On Monday, July 25th, it will be 11 years since my mom's motorcycle accident. She did end up in a nursing home and passed away 3.5 years later. You know what's really amazing? In the year 2020, my mom came to me in a dream with 2 babies. So at the time I thought, damn, I'm gonna have twins. In the dream, she told me that she couldn't wait to be a grandma. She said, I can't wait to drop these babies off in 2023. And this year with my brain hemorrhage, I just thought 2023 did not seem right. How could I survive a brain hemorrhage and then get pregnant? In June of this year, my mom told me that someone was going to get pregnant in July. She said, I'm gonna be a grandma. And so I immediately texted my brother because I felt like it wasn't me. Turns out I predicted his pregnancy with my sister-in-law on July 11th. A little time went by and my mom said, I can't wait for the other baby. And then I realized it was not twins, it was my brother and I. So my mom is going to be a grandma twice in 1 year. Even though she's not here physically, she is spiritually.
Always trust your intuition. So a few weeks ago, I had 2 dreams back to back, both about my ex. In one of the dreams, he was telling me he had a new girlfriend. In the other dream, he was telling me he loved me. Literally the next day, he started watching my stories on Instagram. We don't follow each other. Don't ask me why I don't have him blocked, okay? That's not your business. I was recently in the same city as him. We saw each other platonically, just catching up. It was obvious he is not over me. He was telling me about a dream he had, which prompted me to tell him about the dreams I had, to which he swiftly responded, I don't have a new girlfriend though. Mind you, I don't care. That's why I didn't ask. So we hang out, having a chill time, platonically. Later that night, guess who calls me from his number? His new girlfriend. There were multiple lessons in this. A, don't talk to your ex. B, listen to your dreams. And C, there is nothing you can do that I will not find out about.
I want to know what's funny. Well, it's not even funny, but y'all know that I dreamt about a lot of celebrity deaths that happened. Like with Kobe, I was dreaming about his death for like a week straight, and I was so confused, and I was trying to figure out like, who do I know that's gonna, and then the news hit and it all clicked. I also dreamt Pop's death too, but it's still like I can't do anything, so it's like, ugh.
Working as a professional medium, I've had a lot of unique experiences in my life, and this is one of many. When my son was 2.5 years old, he got very, very ill, and I knew it wasn't a regular flu or virus because the symptoms were really unique. He wasn't just getting over this virus in 3 days like a normal flu or a cold, and then he got this strange symptom where his fingers and toes began to peel. The night of my greatest concern, I had the most profound dream where my grandmother came to me and sat opposite me on a sofa, and she sat and grabbed my hand and said, Gina, he's really sick. And I asked her why, and she said, it's affecting his heart. And she touched her own heart. And I knew my grandmother had had a heart issue from having a virus when she was young. The next day we took him to the doctor's office where we were sent to emergency where he was found to have Kawasaki's disease, and it was affecting his heart. He had to be on a baby aspirin for a year, but he made a full recovery.
Waking up from a vivid dream of my grandmother dying of COVID. Getting a text that she's in the hospital with COVID. She died a week later.
Okay, I have the craziest story to tell you guys that proves that dreams talk to us, and this just happened to me yesterday. So quick background information, I moved to New York City on February 1st, and I was gone for 5 weeks because of the coronavirus. About a month ago, I have this really vivid dream that I'm trying to find hotel room number 513. I find 513, I go in, and it looks like the same hotel room that I'd stayed in with my best friend when I was trying to find my apartment when I came out here in January. And the apartment has like all of my mom's stuff in it. Then this man comes out of the bathroom saying he was sent to kill me because of the book that I'm channeling, because I'm writing a book right now. Anyways, I wake up from this dream very stressed because it was so vivid, and I think it's just because I'm missing New York and my mom and my best friend. I was kind of sure that something would happen the next week, 5/13 as in May 13th, but nothing happened, so I've kind of shrugged it off since. But then yesterday, I flew back to New York City, and I realized when I got to the gate that my flight number was 513.
So what was your first premonition that came true?
So when I was in high school, I had the same dream every night for about 2 months. I couldn't tell where I was, but I could tell I was in a white room and it was all foggy, and I could feel something on my face and on my body. And I distinctly remember 3 voices. One over here that said, is that normal? Is that okay? One down by my feet that said, yeah, I think so. And then a really heavy accent on this side that said, Elaine, you're doing just fine, sweetie. And then I would black out and wake up. It scared me so bad I would wake up crying. And then at the end of my freshman year of high school, I ended up needing abdominal surgery to repair a hernia. I met my nurses and my anesthesiologist, and I didn't think anything of it until they wheeled me into the operating room. As soon as they started to put me under, the room started to go white, and I could feel the mask on my face. And I started panicking because I knew this was my dream. So my heart rate goes up, and the monitor starts going crazy. And the nurse over here says, is that normal? Is that okay? The nurse by my feet says, yeah, I think so. And then my Russian anesthesiologist said, Elaine, you're doing just fine, sweetie. And I'm blacked out.
So what was your first premonition that came true?
So I've had a lot that have come true over the years, but I think the biggest one was I had this reoccurring dream from when I was like 5 to about 8. I had it all the time about going to this castle. I had all the rooms mapped out in my head, all the furnishings, everything. And it's a castle I'd never even heard of in my whole life. Flash to I'm 11 and I got chosen to be a student ambassador. I got to go to Europe. I was super lucky. And one of the places we went to, I recognized it because it was the castle from my dream. A castle in Europe that I dreamed about when I was 5. And that really cemented my belief in how, like, dreams can come true.
I feel like people think that psychic energy or like predicting things, premonitions, everyone has like a clear-cut way of how they think that could happen. Let me tell you a fucking story. One time I didn't want to go into work and I felt like shit, so I called out of my morning shift knowing I had to work a double, and I took a fucking nap and I slept in later. In that nap, I had a fucking dream that I was on my way to work. I was having a false awakening. So I was like groaning and moaning, getting ready in my dream. And when I was on my way to work, I get a text from my boss saying, hey, you don't have to come in. Harry Styles is going to cover your shift because COVID. None of that made sense, but I was like, okay. But I remember in my dream specifically reading that message, hey, you don't have to come in. So-and-so is covering your shift. I wake up pissed because I'm like, fuck, I still have to go in. And I look at my phone. It's a message from my boss saying, I don't have to come in. This person's covering your shift. You know what I mean? Like,
I have a premonition dream for y'all. Y'all can't make this stuff up. A few years ago, I had a dream, and in that dream, right before it ended, I heard this loud male voice in my head say, Hannah is pregnant. Hannah is my cousin's wife. They had been married maybe a year, but never talked of like trying to conceive, so I didn't ask. I wasn't about to be like, are you pregnant? Because that's just rude. Don't ask somebody if they're pregnant. You don't know if they're trying and can't or whatever. You don't know. So I go to my phone in the notes and I remember the date. It was October 27th because that is her husband's birthday. So when I woke up on October 27th, I typed it in my phone notes so that it would save the time, the date, and I could prove, because I knew nobody would believe me if I said, oh, I dreamed that. Like, they just wouldn't. Fast forward a month or so, we celebrate Thanksgiving at my dad's house. So when Hannah gets out of the car, I immediately remember the dream and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's going to announce today. So I look and I immediately start like freaking out because on her shirt at the bottom near her belly, it says extra thankful this year with 2 tiny little feet. So I start like, oh my God. And by this time, like my aunt knew, like most of them knew but me. So I was like, I knew it. I knew, y'all. I knew. And they're like, oh, you get, no, like I knew. Here's the phone. Here's the proof. So they start looking at it and they're like, okay, like we believe you. Like, oh my gosh. She's like, I was pregnant then, but like it was so soon I didn't even know it. So there's no way that you would have known because I didn't find out until a couple days after that. What? And just for the record, I recently had a dream where like I was in a coma or something because they walk into my house. It's like a family function and they are holding a baby girl, a tiny baby girl. And my cousin Gracie is so mad in the dream because they won't let me hold her. She's preemie. And like, that's what stuck out in my mind. Like, oh my God, let Gracie hold the baby. So like, somebody in my family's pregnant, y'all.
Y'all, please tell me y'all remember my last video, not last one, but one where I said I dreamed that my cousin's wife was pregnant, and she was, and then I said somebody else in my family is pregnant because it was in the dream, pregnant with a baby girl, okay? I don't know if y'all remember it. I do. Go back and watch it. It's called Premonition Dream, and in that dream, I dreamed that the same cousin and his wife came into my house holding a baby girl, and my cousin Gracie was mad that they wouldn't let her hold her because she was preemie. And I told y'all somebody's pregnant. Guess what? That's Gracie. We had our Easter get together Saturday. What?
If you thought my stories were cool, you need to hear my grandma's. Hers are intense. So when I was 2, she was diagnosed with like an aggressive colon cancer. Before they could even have surgery to remove it, she started having intense pain. They hospitalized her, and before they could even remove it, it ruptured. So they were like, call the family in, she's not going to make it. We were rushing her into surgery, kind of like a movie, rushing the stretcher into surgery. Their friend was a priest. He's running alongside the stretcher, like praying over her, giving her last rites. And my grandpa watched her go into the surgery doors and thought that was it. So she makes it out, and she's still alive, and they're like, don't have too much hope because she made it through surgery, but she's not going to make it through the night. So everybody comes in, they're like, say your goodbyes because she won't make it through the night. She made it through the night, so the next morning they're like, don't have hope, she won't make it through the day. So fast forward to when I'm like 12 years old, she has a dream that she feels this large tumor, like she can feel the lump in her abdomen, and she goes to the doctor in her dream and they say, yep, your cancer's back. So she wakes up, feels her abdomen, nothing there. So she just goes about her day thinking, okay, that was crazy. Well, a week later, she wakes up. She wakes up because she hears this voice in her head. Sorry, I'm sweating. And it says, your cancer is back. So she just wakes up again, feels her abdomen, and there's the lump. There's the tumor that she felt in her dream. So she goes, makes some doctor's appointment and tells them, like, my cancer's back. And they're like, well, you know, we need to do scans. She's like, no, my cancer's back. Sure enough, they listened to her. They did the scans. Her cancer was back. So they do multiple scans, and they tell her, it doesn't look good. You have a like grapefruit-sized tumor that's entangled in your colon. So we're going to have to do what they call it, where you take part of the colon out. I can't think of the word. And you're going to have a colostomy bag. So she's devastated. She gets multiple opinions. Same thing. It's intertwined in your intestines, and we're going to have to take it out. So she goes into surgery, and when she wakes up, she immediately feels her stomach, and there's no bag. So she asks, like, what happened? And they're like, we're going to let the doctor tell you. So her surgeon comes in, and he's like, I don't know how to explain it. Normally I have, like, a scientific explanation for things, but I don't have one. He said, when we go in there to take out your tumor, it's only attached by, like, this thread of tissue, like, literally, like, the size of a thread. So we just snipped it and removed it. That's unheard of. Like, that is not what the scan showed, and we're mind blown. But then they tell her, since you keep having cancer that keeps coming back, even though you go into remission, we're going to have to do lifelong chemo. So let me tell the second story. So the doctor tells her she's going to need like lifelong chemo, like a low dosage, just to keep the cancer away. And she's like, I don't know if I want to do that. He's like, well, you don't have to make the decision today. Go home, think about it, and let me know in like a week. So she goes home, and being the devout Christian Catholic woman that she is, she prays about it, and she's like, God, give me a sign if I am going to be able to live without having this cancer treatment, this chemo, for the rest of my life. Give me a sign, because I don't want to make this decision on my own. So the Sunday, like, before their appointment that she goes back to, she and my grandpa go to church, and they went to a different church this particular day, and they always sit front row. So with her name being Rose, her favorite flower is naturally a rose. So any rose that she sees she's drawn to it. So they sit front row, and the statue of Mary is right in front of them. And at Mary's foot is a single rose, like red rose in like full perfect bloom. And she just she didn't think nothing of it. She just thought, wow, that's so beautiful. So it like kept catching her eye the entire mass. And right before they get up to go to communion, she looks over again, and there's two. And she was like, I know there was just one, because like I've been staring at it. So they get up, they go to communion. She doesn't say anything. She just walks by it, like making sure. She's like right by it. And there was only one when she looked the first 30 minutes of mass.
But then all of a sudden there was 2, and nobody got up and went in front of her. She would have noticed. So she passes by it, and there's 2. So she's like, oh my God. So when Mass is over, they get back in the vehicle, and she asked my grandpa, did you see what was in the vase at Mary's feet? And he's like, yeah, it was a rose. It was pretty. He's like, why? She said, how many were there? And he's like, 1. She's like, are you sure? He's like, well, yeah, it was like right in front of us. Like, I would know. So she took that as her sign of, you don't need chemo anymore. So she goes to the doctor and she's like, I don't want to do it. And he's like, okay, I respect your decision. So that was when I was 12. I'm 35. And she has had 2 cancers since then. And both were caught so extremely early that they just had to remove it. And she's fine. So 5 cancers in total. And she's never had chemo again. Like, she doesn't need it. None of it. And she's great. Like, she's living life.
So there's something about me a lot of people don't know. And I'm posting this because I want to know if anyone else out there has experienced this. Sometimes I dream of things and then they happen. No, it's not like deja vu, like, oh, I think I've seen this before. No, it's like I have a dream, I explain it to someone, and then the next week or day it actually happens. For example, I had this really disturbing dream about these fires by my house on these mountains. There was this very distinct mushroom-looking cloud, and I was telling my mom all day about it. And she was just listening. She's like, okay, whatever. As I'm driving with my mom, I show her, I'm like, Mom, that's the cloud from my dream. There's this big mushroom cloud over these mountains. She was a little freaked out. And then we discovered that there were fires on these mountains, and those were the holy fires that happened a couple years ago. I don't know if I have an ability or what, but if anyone else out there has this, let me know.
I had this dream that my father and I are sitting in this really beautiful mansion, like a kitchen and like a island. My father's like sitting across from me, and I'm like looking at him, and my father's crying, and he's just profusely crying, and I'm like, Dad, why are you crying? And he goes, you gotta forgive me or I can't leave. I said, what are you talking about? He's like, do you forgive me? And I said, yeah. I said, I forgive you. He goes, then I can leave now. Obviously, he was like, but you gotta forgive me or I can't leave. I said, oh, Dad, I forgive you. And then the phone rings. So I pick up the phone, and it's my aunt. And I was like, he passed away? She goes, why do you know that? And I said, because he just came in my dream and he asked me for forgiveness. What? I was like, that's how I lived. And she was like, yeah, he just passed away.
My mom's side of the family is very intuitive. Sometimes we have dreams that literally come true. There was one time where my cousin, he was sleeping, and in the middle of the night, he woke up his parents. He was like, Yaya's dog died. And they were like, what are you talking about? And he was like, well, I had this dream that, like, I saw, like, that her dog died. Literally the next morning, she called them and told them that her dog died.
This is probably the spookiest thing I'll say. They put more morphine in me, I go to sleep. I have a dream. It's a black screen, and I heard a voice, soothing, heavy. It said, Tyler, ... Like it was being texted to me, Tyler, ... What do you have right now, ... If you follow me, you will be a fisher of men. And that's in the Bible. I find that out later on, right? I wake up, the youth pastor, he was in the hospital room when I woke up. The first thing he says to me, Tyler, what do you have right now, bro? If you'll follow God, you'll be a fisher of men. I don't even know this guy. We've never talked before, like, don't know you. I go, bruh, you'll never believe the dream I just had. I did not grow up in church. I had probably never read the Bible before my entire life. Coincidence, spiritual, I don't know what this is, but it ain't